Good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sarah McChesney, and on behalf of ProTech Training, I welcome you to this webinar, Learn How to Use the Business Objects Analysis tab. Today's presentation should be finished at around 40 minutes after the hour. Please feel free to send us any questions during the webinar, and our expert will be happy to answer them at the end of his presentation. You will find the question area in the top right-hand corner of your screen within the control panel. Also, please feel free to send us any other business objects topics that you would like to see presented in an upcoming webinar when our presenter comes back in a couple of months. But for now, please let me introduce you to our presenter. Michael Ward has been working in the IT industry for over 40 years. He has been working with business objects for 23 of those years. Michael has been teaching with ProTech for over 2 decades, and his passion for his teachings is infectious. He always receives outstanding reviews from his students. Michael is excited to be able to share his expertise and knowledge on the Analysis tab with us today. With no further ado, I bring you Michael Ward.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for signing up. There's been these stories circulating about business objects, and it's on the downturn as a product and so on. And we're seeing quite the opposite of big trending up of interest in the product because people want to do extensive reporting and charting. And I happen to work with other products like Tableau, and they're doing more than visualizations, but they're doing reporting and a combination. So it's really exciting for me to see the big turnout that we have. I've been doing webinars here lately, kind of scattered over the last few months, and we've been seeing interest levels from anywhere from 300 up to almost 500 people signing up for a webinar. I thank you, those of you who signed up for today. We're expecting actually close to 400, and I'm very pleased to see that and see that you come out in order to see it. It'll really be an awesome presentation. It's going to be a live demo. What I'm going to talk about, let me pop up a slide real quick just so you can see very briefly. I'm going to talk specifically today about reporting functions. It's the analysis toolbar in Webi that's so overlooked. It's the single most important tab across the top. We know that Microsoft calls those ribbons. You and I call them tabs, or tabularizing is my favorite term for it. And when you get into the analysis tab, you're looking at some exceptional features that do a lot of cool stuff. Some of these features are on the newer side. They evolved in much newer versions or service pack levels. Some were late 4.1, many are prior to that. Some are post, but we're going to cover all of these and give you some real insight into the reporting functions and how powerful they are, and give you a different way of looking at things as we go through this as well. And I'll do it by virtue of live, so you can see firsthand how they work. Take some good notes along the way. So let me get into Webi here real quick. I'm running 4.2 SP7. Service Pack 8 is actually out. I didn't bother to update because it's strictly a fixes kind of thing, or bugs as you and I would call them. Enhancements of undocumented features is what the business objects people would call it. So, but right up through SP7, we'll be able to highlight some things. Now, usually what I like to do on a webinar before I kick in here and get started, a couple of general things. Many of you may be new or relatively new to 4.2. 4.2 SP3 and above is where you want to be because you get almost 99% compatibility with the old Java version. Secondly, make sure that you go to Preferences under Business Objects and make sure that your modified capability is set to HTML and not to applets, or you will not be running the HTML version. You're stuck with Java. By doing that, it means if you're running HTML, you can pick your browser. I've been using Chrome lately. Slight behavioral differences between that and IE. You could use Firefox or other browsers, but that's the nice thing about having an HTML version. There's a lot of extra little bonuses you get from Webi. They're really cool things, many that aren't formally documented but are there, but you get to pick your browser. If you're running Edge, you're going to have an issue. Right now in 4.2, Edge is not supported. I've been running the 4.3 beta version for 4 months, the future version of it, which has been pretty cool, but a long way from being delivered, and they're going to be opening up the Edge version in there as well. So just be careful. If you can go to the Chrome, use Chrome for your browser, you're going to do very, very well. As you all know, when you come into Webi and you first log in, or maybe you bypass it because you're set up for single login, you come up to the Home or Documents tab, and obviously through Preferences, you control which one defaults. I'm going to log in, click the Webi icon to open up a Webi document, and we'll create our document, and we'll start applying and going through the different functions that are available off the analysis toolbar. Some things some enhancements. You might be in an earlier version 4.2, maybe Service Pack 3 or 4 or 5. And some other things showed up more recently. Text is now available to you. Wasn't before. Excel's been there from the beginning. Universe, no data source, and so on. You also have the freehand SQL options available as well. You can bring in more than one data source. You can mix and match. Could be a future presentation. Bringing in a couple queries from a universe, maybe a couple Excel spreadsheets, maybe a freehand SQL. Bring it all together into a single document and report off of it, all within the realm of what you can do with Webi as a powerful, powerful tool for that. So we'll wait for it to come up. There's my universe list here. And I'll use the old boring fashion that we continue to use. We keep it updated data-wise and whatever else, but we'll use that as our starting point. And here's your standard query panel, HTML version, not Java. It's a little bit different. 4.2 when you're running HTML, I like it. I'm used to it. It's got the little extra arrows here on the left and so on. But it's things that you're used to seeing along the way. Let's go out and let's generate some a query with some useful objects that we need. For my demos today, I'll stick to year, quarter. From the store folder, I'll grab the state name, and I'll grab the measures. Now, what's really nice about HTML version is instead of you dragging the measures folder up to get all the contents of the measures folder, or you could have opened it up and gone through one at a time or multi-selected and dragged, if I just double-click on the folder itself, it automatically brings all the objects into the window. In this case, I wanted them. Other cases, you may not want to do that because you get everything and you get more than you bargained for along the way. Today's presentation is not going to deal with query filters. We could have a whole separate session on that, but we'll stick strictly to the report output or report viewer side. I've just selected the objects I want. This is a review, as you all know, because this is a brand new query. Query being run for the first time. It's going to be, by default, the column order left to right with what you see here. Once I run that query, the query panel then says, I'm done. The next time you come back to the query panel, it will no longer affect the order there. You do it in the report viewer by dragging your columns left and right. And that's always done that way. So nothing's changed there. But just to review, again, we've got people coming in with different backgrounds along the way. So that way we kind of fill in the blanks for you as well. And we'll let our report come up on the screen. Here it is. Okay. And we can grab it, move it around a little bit here, and we're good to go. And, of course, there's our 5 ribbons across the top. I like to call them tabs of ribbons. Left side, all of your standard different features and things you're used to, exporting, saving, printing. Here's our universe definition with some other little options along the left side as well. And the 5 tabs across the top, the only one we're interested in today is the analysis tab. And that's the one typically for most of my customer sites that I teach at or remote. I'm doing a lot of virtual lately as well. Very good at delivering it that way to you as well. But for a lot of my customers, they spend 95 to 98% of the time in the report viewer, particularly with the analysis tab. It's got all the cool features that you want to be able to apply to your report to make the report stand out. Let's take a quick view first. Starting on the left, you've got local filters, not to be confused with query filters. Think of a query filter as global. It controls what comes into the document. If I limit it to 1 year and I get into the document here and I want to filter it on years, I'm only going to have the years that sifted through from the original query. So this is a local filter. It's designed to be on a specific report block or chart, as well as on different tabs. If I have more than one report tab or more than one report, which is the correct term in business objects, on each tab I can apply this filter to everything on that tab or individually to individual columns of certain blocks. Ranking, good old top or bottom, whether it's a count value or percentage. I'll show it to you briefly. I don't like to use it, mainly because ranking has some limits, but there's a function in the function library where you could create a new variable and use the rank function there, and it gives you more extended capability. I'll talk about that one later on as well. Input controls, very critical way of doing local filtering, interactively with radio buttons and so on. We won't cover that today. That could be a whole separate presentation down the road. Then we go to the display button. The display has group, break, and sort. Of these 3, the 2 you're going to use on a most regular basis would be break and sort. In fact, I'm from Detroit, so we talk about the big 3 automotive, but in Webi I call the big 3 this: a break, a sort, and a local filter, because those are the 3 common ones that we use all the time in our reports to make the data more presentable. And by the way, some of these functions I'm going to show you will also work on charts. Obviously, I can't do a break. There's ways to get around it using section or master detail reports, but separate from that, I have sorting, filtering, even ranking. A lot of these can be applied either to a report block or a chart block. We don't want to lose sight of that. We're not going to do conditional formatting. We could have a lot of fun with that one, but that would be a whole topic in itself. So we'll leave that one out. And over on the interact side, you've got advanced drilling, a feature not utilized much anymore, local filter bar and outlining. What we are concerned about are functions. Functions are the ones that we see in all products that we work with: sum, count, average, min, max, and percentage. Okay? So these are all the different possibilities of things that you could do. So let's take the report that we do have out. I generated a basic report: year, quarter, state, sales, revenue, quantity sold, and margin. Let me go off to the side for a minute, and let's just go out there and let's add a report tab, your standard speed menu for adding reports. This is really cool. And let's populate it with a real simple report just to show you the functionality of ranking. Okay? And I'll show you what I don't like about ranking, but it's good for quick and dirty. So I want state, sales, revenue, quantity sold. We'll drag that across. Your standard multi-select functionality that exists. I might want to do an auto fit because of this sizing issue that comes up, standard anymore. But anyways, there's my report. And I want to do a ranking. What if I wanted my top 3 states and not all of them? All right. Well, the way you would use the ranking function is you always rank a dimension based on a measure. In my typical training classes, I load it up with all kinds of BP, best practices. I teach you to make notes in your books, and this is one of them. You want to highlight the state. You want to rank the states based on one of the measures, preferably a measure that's in the report, because I could have also brought margin in, and I didn't, and it wouldn't make sense to do it on margin. Once I've selected the dimension, I can go up to the add ranking. The simple add ranking function comes up, and it makes it very easy for us to do a top or a bottom. Okay? You can actually do both together. If you want to make your brain go crazy, try that. Put them both on there together, see what you get. We would normally not want to do it. And I want top 3, although I could vary it. But notice the based on window. You have to be careful when you're using ranking to always double check your based on. Webi looks at all the measures you brought in, and it randomly picks one as the default. And we always miss this. We don't want to. So we're going to go in there now, based on sales revenue. Those are that or quantity sold are the only 2 columns in my report. Okay, I could do an OK on it. And now I get my top 3. The other 7, or other 5 rather in this case, are hidden. Okay. It's almost like it does a sort and a local filter. You could look at it that way if you wanted to. Here's a little trick for formatting the cell to get the automatic auto-fitting to go. It's having a problem getting the little double line, so I just did it that way, get the auto-fit to work that particular way. What's nice about ranking is you can go in very quickly, and you can change it. I can edit it. Instead of top 3, maybe I want the bottom 4 in ascending order, which would be the default for that one. We'll still base it on sales revenue, although I could pick quantity sold, doing OK. And lo and behold, I get my bottom 3 from lowest line all the way up the line. One of the things I don't like about the ranking is it doesn't give you a rank number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is a problem. I want to know a relative ranking position, so therefore, you're not going to be able to do it automatically here. So just be aware of that. There's a way to do it using a function called rank that I mentioned in introduction as well. If I can go back into the ranking, one other thing that will close this section out is what if I wanted percentage instead? Notice there's a count. There's a count, a percentage, and a running count or percentage, so you get a cumulative effect. And those that have worked with this would know what that means. We'll do a percentage, and now what I want to do is I want the top 50%. So I'll make a slight little adjustment to the example here. Give me my top 50%. Instead of basing it on sales revenue, we'll pick quantity sold. I can pick either one. I could pick margin, but it would only make sense if I added it back into the report block. And I do an OK, and I get the top 50%. Let's be careful how we interpret that. Top 50% means how many total states are there? 8. Top 50% would be the top 4. It doesn't do it based on the revenue number and how many of those states touch that, and that's where the cumulative one would come in. If you work with it, then you'll understand exactly how that works for that as well. One little thing I'm always asked is, what if I want to do a ranking here, but I want all the values? Okay. All right, I want to do it on all of them. Okay, so I come in, and there's a top or a bottom one. Well, there's a little trick to this that you can do to make sure you always get them all. Instead of doing a top 50%, just do a top 100%. It means give me all of them and do the base it on quantity sold for that, and I'll get all 100% of the values in descending order, and away you go. Now, you could have done this yourself with a sort. Sorted them in descending order, sort them in ascending order. But we just wanted to apply the ranking. To do that, we'll take the ranking out, and I'll show you one more example later on of how to use the ranking within some break groups that are existing out there as well. Okay. Again, the ranking is a little more limited, but does a nice job. I can rank in report blocks, and I can rank in a chart block. If you're doing master detail reporting with master sections and details, you can even rank at the master level if you wanted to, at the master cell level, and it works basically the same as well. Remember, the way to remember ranking is you rank a dimension based on a measure. That's how it works. Let's go back to our report now. Let's take a quick look at the report. I've got year, quarter, state. What I'd like to do is I'd like to put a break in the report. Breaks are about as common can be. We do it in Excel, and I've done it in every product that I've ever worked with over the years. Every report has a break, a way of grouping things left to right. All right? They don't always have to be the leftmost column, although they normally are. So we want to break our report based on a time period, so I want it to be year and then quarter. So I'm going to highlight the year column, and I have a function called break that I can use. You click the down arrow. I could have just clicked on the break button. It would have invoked it automatically. We're going to add a break. Lo and behold, when I add the break, look what I get. So for 2016, it puts it on line 1, leaves the rest of the repeating values blank, shows my 4 quarters. At the end of the first year, it automatically puts in a footer, a break footer, puts in the footer value, and it puts a blank separator line or block between each individual break that you put in there. I want you to notice something else. This is a 4.2 Service Pack 6 feature. Notice there's now subtotals for my 3 measures. Think about that. I didn't go up to the function button up here, and I didn't highlight sales revenue or quantity sold or margin and hit the sum button. It did it automatically. That is a really cool feature. Automatic subtotals, subtotals only. If you go down to the bottom of the report, you have an interesting little problem. When you get down to the very bottom, let me hit the page numbers to go down to the bottom. You'll see subtotals, but you will not see grand totals. That's okay. By putting in the automated way, they came up with a little technique for it. It took us a little while to find it because a lot of these little things they'll sneak in aren't always documented. If I go to the edge of the block where I see the 4-way arrow, typically when you move it along the very edge, you'll see a 4-way arrow. If you right-click at that point, that's your classic format table. It used to be called Format Block Properties in the 3 release. In 4, we renamed it Format Table. If you go to Format Table for this block, there's an option in the right-hand corner called Table Headers and Table Footers. Similar to when you do a cross table and you want to turn on the header names up here in the right-hand corner. I want Table Footers. Table Footers means grand total. I want you to notice what happens, and lo and behold, there you go. And it took care of the problem for us. I still got some auto-fitting to do if I want to get these right. Let me get them all lined up right. And now you get your grand total, and you could go back and turn it off if you wanted to as well. If you do not want the automatic subtotals, let me go back to the top of this, very top of the report, start back at the very beginning. If you don't want the automatic subtotals, you can turn them off. You'd have to highlight the column up here, and you see the automated sum. If you click the down arrow, it tells you whether it's a sum or default aggregation. This is the default aggregation feature. It does it by default. And most of the time you want it. It makes it kind of nice. This happens when you create a vertical report like that and you have measures in there and you put a break in the report. It can happen horizontally too because you can also do a break going across the page in addition to going down. So you would see row totals, subtotals rather, instead of column subtotals. Awesome feature to have available to us. So we'll leave that on there for right now. I want a second break on quarter. Okay? So I'll highlight the break, the column for quarter again, and I'll do the break. Okay? And now I get an automatic second level break. Now I could have just opened up the break window by going up to what's called Manage Breaks. And inside of here, I could have gone in, and I could have added them one at a time and done all the manipulation up here if I wanted to as well. So I'm used to doing it on the column itself, but you don't have to. You can do it inside. So now notice what it did. So for 2016, quarter 1, it gives me my 8 states. I get a subtotal on quarter, then quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. At the break level for that second year, or first year rather, it's the first one we're looking at. You'll see we get the intermediate totals at the year level, all because of the automatic break properties now that come into the mix. Now I want you to notice something. We have an interesting little dilemma here. If you look at this closely, notice how every time I hit a quarter, I get a repeated complete set of titles all the way across for every single column. This is a common one that people are always trying to get rid of. They only want the subtotal. They don't need to have this header block here repeat after every quarter. It's because of the year quarter. So what you can do very easily is go to Manage Breaks. Everything's driven off of Manage Breaks. Okay? And let's stop for a second and talk about a couple other features that are available before we apply this one in here as well. Our goal right now is to go in and get rid of that duplication of the headers. We'll take care of that in a minute. But over on the right side, you have display properties, duplicate values, and page layout. Page layout is the general layout. Notice there's start on a new page. If I click on start on a new page and I do it for a year, every year will automatically page break for me. And I can avoid page breaks in a block. And I can repeat the header on every page. Look how nice that is. And I can do the same thing for quarter. I can add additional ones in as part of that as well. Let's go back to year for a minute. Another new feature that was introduced in the 4.3 world was value-based breaks. What service pack level, I cannot remember, but it was introduced in 4.2 somewhere along the way. I have a handout that I can make available to you that summarizes all the new features in 4.2 by service pack level, and I can give you a little handout on that. Value-based break means I don't want to break automatically. Maybe I don't want one for every year. Maybe I only want it for the first and third years. All right. It's useful if you were doing this, for example, on a state, and you had multiple states, and 2 or 3 of the states were very big, so you wanted to value-based break only on those states and let the other ones all be grouped together. Let's just do one here, and we click the values button. And we tell Webi which values do I want it to break on. And what it will automatically do is only break on those. Okay? It will not break on any of the other years that you would have, and you control it as well. Notice everything's driven off of the breaks window. Let's go up here to manage breaks again. This is probably one of the most important options available on that analysis tab. It controls all the groupings and pairings and so on, and is simplistic in light of the fact that they gave us a manage break window for it, as you see right there. So I'm going to go back to year, and I want to turn the break header on for that one. Okay. And I'm going to go to quarter, and for quarter, what I'm going to do is turn the break header off on that one. I don't want it there. And we're going to do an OK on it. Now what you're going to see happen is look what happened in the breakout now. So now for 216 quarter 1, it gives me all of my 8 states, gives me a subtotal, goes on to the next one, but notice it didn't repeat the header. In fact, I don't see the header repeated at all until I move to the next year, driven by the number 1 break, all driven by that. So by doing this, look how nice that was. I get rid of that duplication factor. Now I have to thank an old friend of mine from Sanomish. It's a public utility up in Everett, Washington. Some of you, I think, are in on today's webinar. An old friend of mine, Sharon, they work with, what she would do, a little trick that she liked to employ, which is really cool here. For each of the quarter breaks, she would multi-select across, either way you choose to do it, because it's a break, but we've removed that repeating title. What she would do is go up to the formatting window up here, and we would go up and we would change the background color to a very light color. Let's pick the yellow will work. It'll make it stand out enough for that one. So now what it does is it automatically makes each of the in more detail level break. It's at the quarter level, and now you have a separator way of identifying of theirs very easily. Frankly, if you wanted, you could do the same thing for each and every year. You could build in color coding and work it along there as well if you wanted to as part of that process. While we're doing breaks, can I combine it with ranking? Wait a minute. Let's talk about this for a minute. Can I combine different functions together? Well, with a break and a rank, they're both going to affect what's displayed, but yes, you can. In this particular example, what's the most detailed level? The state. That's the lowest level of dimension value that we're at. That's the place that logically would make sense to do a ranking. So within each year and quarter, I want to rank my state. So what I would do, what's my best practice pointer I mentioned earlier today? You rank the dimension based on a measure. So I highlight the state. I go up and select the ranking button, or I could hit the drop down. I can limit it just to top 3, and we'll base it on margin, since margin is also in the report. And within each of my break groups, for every year, quarter combination, I get the top 3. Now, they all happen to be New York, California because of the way the data has been built, but if there had been variances in it, would have differed from each and every one of the break groups. So yes, ranking can be used inside of breaks, and it works very nice. It would not make sense to do that at the year level because of how the data is organized, unless, of course, you had a lot of years. But I always tend to follow another one of my little best practice pointers. I break on the higher level dimensions, and I rank on the lowest. Break high, rank low. You generally want the ranking at the lowest level to ensure it's working correctly, and that you want to make it so that the user can also follow it and see what's going on as well. So again, little things like that enter into the picture. Let's get local filtering out of the way. This is a pretty easy one. Local filtering, you can do it two ways. You can click on the white tab area like I did here. Well, I don't want to do it in the title. And then I can apply a filter, and the filter will get applied to the tab so that any report and or chart that I drop onto that tab will automatically be filtered. It's not a global filter like a query, but you could almost call it a report tab filter because that's really what it is. But I want to do it differently. I want to do it just on this particular report. What if I don't want all the years? Well, this is an easy one. This should be a no-brainer for you all. I'll highlight the year. I'll go up and hit the old filter button, and it's going to come back and give me the ability to select one or more values that I want. It'll automatically build the construct up here for me, and maybe I only wanted 18 and 19. By the way, you can double-click on these, or you can multi-select and use the arrows, whatever. Now what it's going to do, it's going to give me only 18 and 19 data, as you see right there. That's a nice little feature. The only way you can tell by looking at this level is by highlighting a particular column that has it, seeing the filter button light up, and then you can see that there is a filter available, and then when you go in to edit it, I could then go back in and I could say, you know what, I want to remove this filter completely up here. The same filtering that I'm showing you can also be applied directly to any chart for charting purposes as well. So it makes it very nice for that part of it as well. I could filter on in quarter and states. Filtering is very, very easy. You saw what the construct was, exactly that of a query filter, object, operator, operand. Very, very cool for that. Now let's get rid of the breaks. Let's go in here. I want to show you a second kind of break that's brand new. I believe the group, be able to do a group break was just introduced in a recent one. So let me remove all the breaks. So now what I can do is go to Manage Breaks. If I click on block 1 up here, and I do an add, it comes back with a secondary window and allows me to do them in groups together. We used to do this in the old desktop product where I could do 2 together. So it's breaking it on 2, not on 1, and puts them together. So you get a little different display of your data. Now when the data comes up, notice how it's got the year quarter laid out at the break level for each one. So just different type of format for it. That's a new feature. Probably SP6 would be my guess. I'm sorry I can't remember. I used to be really good on SP3 and above. And once we got up to 6, it was just too hard to remember all of them as well. So it allows me to effectively go in and say, you know what, I'm going to manage the breaks, and maybe I want to take those out. And I can remove them at this point, and I can redo them as a single value if I wanted to as well. So again, with the break functionality, really lends itself well to this as well. Let's put the breaks, well, we got the breaks back in there. And we should have, manage breaks. Whoop, I cleared it off. There it is. Did a little funny thing for it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do it a different way. We'll just highlight the year. And we'll go in and do a break on it. Then we'll do the quarter. We'll apply a break that way. Reapply the breaks, and there we go, quarters 1, 2, 3, 4. I did notice this when I turned that feature off. This is the behavioral thing I encountered recently with it. I no longer did this as a group, but it remembered it from what I did it before, so it by default automatically displays it in this particular fashion by doing it the way that I did. So just be aware of that, part of that as well. But what about sorting? What about grouping? Let's get grouping out of the way. This is a really cool one. This was introduced in 4.1 Service Pack 6. One of those amazing overlooked features. No, let me correct myself. It was 4.1 period when it was first introduced, along with Excel files. I always got to remember which one was where in the earlier releases. And let me get all my headings and things aligned back up. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to recreate the report. Sometimes with Chrome, it's a little finicky about dragging things out, particularly blocks. So I just do the block level stuff and remove it. So let's put this all back in there to get everything set back to the defaults. I want year, quarter, state, sales revenue, quantity sold. If you don't do multi-selecting, look how cool this is. Drag them all in, drop them all into place, and away we go. If you have a problem moving things around, if you remember at the block level, there's an assign data feature that's available that allows you to move things around and move them wherever you want. That was built specifically for charting, and it works great for reports as well. So what if I took the year, did a break, and said, let's take the quarter out? I'm running Chrome, so Chrome's a little finicky about dragging things. So if I drag the quarter up and then over, it will take it out. Or if I went just to the left, it wouldn't. So little behavioral things between using IE versus Chrome. Just minor little things, but I like to highlight those as well. First of all, let's get the sorting out of the way. I can highlight year. I go up to sorting. You all know that one, ascending or descending. I get my pick. Maybe I want descending order, and away I go. What about custom sorting? Then we'll come back to the group later. To do a custom sort, and this one always drives people crazy, particularly a good one if you're doing months, January through December, since they don't come up in the right order. For custom sorting, you have to go in and pick the advanced option. I don't know why they don't call this managed sorts, because they rename it later on, but advanced is for doing custom sorting. And what it allows you to do is to do an add. It allows you to pick, in this case, state. And then if you hit the values button, it allows you to put them in whatever order you want using the arrows. In HTML, you have to use the arrows to move them up and down. Some of you old timers from the Java days, we used to be able to drag them in here. Because we're in HTML, I just have to use my arrows as I highlight and move it up or down. It also still supports placeholders. And if I wanted to, I could drag New York up here and Illinois down further and so on. And I could drive it through that way if I wanted to as well. When you take a custom sort off, one of the biggest problems people run into is they don't take them off correctly, and it embeds it inside. So I always have an easy way to do it. I haven't added in yet, but normally, well, let's do it. Let's just so we have an example. Let me just do one. For state. Oh, actually, I'm messing it up here. I'm gonna remove it and put it back in. I messed it up. Got to be careful. We're going to add one back in. We're going to add in state. Doing OK. I'll hit the values button, and I'll just take New York. I'll do one single change just for time's sake. Move it up. You can put everybody up and down and around in any order that you want. And now when I come back in, my default order has changed as you'd expect it to be. And if I go back to advanced, here's how you have to be very careful to remove a custom sort. If you don't follow my two-step process, generally it embeds it in the block. You end up taking the whole block out and recreating it in order to remove that embedded one, just because you didn't remove it correctly. It's really easy. Take the one that you did the custom sort on. This is the state dimension. First thing you do is a reset. Second thing you do is a remove. And you do an OK, and it puts it back in the default order, and everybody is happy. So you have to be careful, again, with that one as well. All right, that's the custom feature that's available. All right, one of the hidden gems I was just going to show you, and I kind of thought let's get sorting out of the way first, is the group button. Grouping is an incredibly powerful feature. What grouping allows you to do is to reclassify things, reorganize them a different way on the fly. You don't really have an appreciation until you see it in action. Then you realize to do it the long way, even if you've ever built if-then-else expression, what if I want to put my states into region? That's what I'm going to do here in a minute, demonstrate to you how this works. I could do it the old way or the classic way. I could say if my state is in the list of values, California or Colorado, then West Coast, else if my state. And then you work this long system of if-then-else statements with in-list buckets. You got to type all the old values in, correctly I might add, and replace them with the new. What a nightmare. But for your dimensions, what you could do instead is take advantage of the group. So I've highlighted state. I'm going to use the group button here to group those together. This is going to be a whole new column. It's no longer going to lose state. It's going to be region. It loses its original identity. Notice there's a description box. In fact, as of SP6, I believe, you can put comments in a lot of places. If you create a local variable calculation now, you can. It's expanded in the conditional formatting area, and you can put one here as well. What I love about this feature is it's so powerful. It's such a time saver, but it's so intuitive. Let me show you what I mean right here. I'm going to create a new column called region. It's going to dynamically create it by rolling up based on what I specify. Now watch how easy this is. We'll take California and Colorado, and if I wanted, I could have added Texas in, but I don't. And I said, why don't we group that one together? We'll call it West Coast. So I type in my West Coast, reference right there. Whoop, jumped on me. West, C-O-A-S-T. So we took care of that group. Let's take D.C. and Massachusetts and New York, those particular three. We'll group those together. And why don't we call that one Northeast? Whoop. And H-E-A-S. Whoop. My mouse keeps jumping on me when I don't want it to. We'll do a Northeast on that one next. Then I can go in and take Florida and Texas. We'll group those two together. Okay. Group them right on the fly. And why don't we call those southeast for that one. And notice there's a single value. In the old desktop days when we had a group function there, single values were a little difficult. You had to do an extra trick or two to get them to do that here now. I can pick Illinois. Okay. I can do a group single value. We'll call it Midwest. Rename it there. And now I've got my values all defined. The typical question that comes up, because this is such a powerful feature, is what if a new entry comes in? A new state, and it's not already defined. What's it going to do? Well, ungroup values exist for that purpose. You click the down arrow and say, just show the value, or automatically group those, and I want you to stick that in a group called others. Okay? And I stick the remaining values in there, and anything new that comes in, or if there had been any that I had not automatically assigned here, they'd have gone there as well. If you made a mistake, look how easy this is to maintain. I can do a move to or ungroup, very easy to do. If I don't like the group name, I can highlight the group name, go down or select it down here, either or. Select one of the groups. Using the edit function, I can rename it and change it around. But watch what it does. Right on the fly, it regrouped things, and now I'm looking at a column called region instead, and my states are now buried inside. Also notice, it created a region variable. Variables are really important because variables are extensions of your universe. They're additional objects you're built into the report in the Available Objects window to be used throughout the entire document on all your report tabs, on all of your reports, all of your charts. Okay. To edit it, I can highlight the group column, the region column here, and select the group button, or I can just double-click like I would any other variable, and it brings it up in the window as well. It allows me to make the corresponding changes and so on along the way, and I can move things around as well. Since that's a local variable, that means I can use that in a ranking, I can use that in a filter, I can use it in another group inside of it, a break, sort. So it really is a very powerful feature. Where I've seen it used, number one use, healthcare industry, if they're looking at diagnostic codes, and the codes are going to be regrouped a different way, they're reclassified, and they want to see all of the corresponding measures that correspond to that to be regrouped based on the dynamic regrouping that you did right here. Another one that I've seen it used for, and this is kind of interesting, and I can thank customers like you for this, is I have people that are generating a report, maybe it's based on patients, patient IDs or patients. Let's say patient name. And you generate a report, and each patient is in there more than one time because when the person keyed in all of their information, they mistyped their name. And we're breaking the report by the name, and now I've got multiple occurrences showing up. Well, the group window will show me all of them. I merely checkbox the ones that might be for my first patient, make the correction, and off I go. Now, that's an extreme, and it would take some work to do it, but the point is you can do it pretty easily doing it that way versus trying to go in and fix up the data some other way. Now, I can still bring in state to the right of the region if I wanted. Kind of defeats the purpose of maybe you wanted to see the state along with it, have it broken out a little differently, and maybe I would want to do a different type of break or whatever, but now you can see what happens. And, of course, if I don't want the state, kind of doesn't work in this example, you could say. There's an argument to be made both ways for it. We'll go back to the original format. With maintaining it, if you go in and click the group button, and again, you can move things around into different groups, ungroup them standalone. You can change the ungroup value function and so on along the way, and you are good to go. To do this yourself, I already started the explanation a couple minutes ago. I would use an if-then-else expression and say if state in the list, California, semicolon, Colorado, then whatever, else if, and you have to give all the old values and then all the new values and type all of those in correctly. Not going to work. So let me get another thing. How do I get rid of that interesting little group that I've created? What if I want to clear it out? All right. Well, there's two ways you can open it up. You have to be careful. If I double-click on the left and open up region, it opens up the manage groups, which is correct. And if I do it over here, if I highlight group here, it brings it up as well. What I've discovered, and it's in the mid-service pack levels, probably in service pack 3, maybe 4 or 5 range, something like that. I run into a situation once in a while. Let me undo it first, and let me explain what I mean. I want to undo all of them. I just want to go back to the original format. I click on state, so it selects them all, or I could have gone through and done it individually. I say ungroup them all in one fell swoop. And now that I've done that, I move my window up a little bit so I can get to the OK button. I do an OK button to clear it out, and now it's removed. When I've done it by opening it up off the variable, you get the same identical window. If it does something funky, it'll throw an error message, and it will not ungroup those. And what I found I had to do was use the undo hand corner. You all know we have an undo that's available to us. We have an undo button, and then open it back up and do it up here, and it takes care of the problem. So I wouldn't worry about it. It's probably fixed already, but just once in a while when I'll use the ungroup button, it'll throw an error on the column. The undo and doing it back again the second time seems to straighten it out as well. So again, some of the little nuances, little things that you run into along the way. So those are the, again, using the group function, combining in with the other options that you see here as well. Our sorting was applied in there. You can see what I was talking about with break, sort, and filter, and how they work for that as well. And the ranking in this report, ranking would make good sense at the state level. I could rank these states in descending order. But to be honest with you, here's a case where I don't need ranking. I can highlight the sales revenue column. I can go up to the sort button and do a descending, and I get all the values in descending order based on sales revenue. Yes, you just saw me sort a measure. There's an old wives' tale floating around from the early days of Desky. I don't know why or what. It said that you can only sort on dimensions and details, or attributes as they're now known, and not on measures. Well, I'm sorting on a measure right here. Here it is. There you go, right on down the line. Simple, basic sort. We'll turn it back off again. Let me highlight the column, take the sort button again, and we'll remove this. We'll just do a none on it to remove it there, and we're back to the original format that you see. Let me do one other thing. Let's take this report tab on the bottom. Let's double click on the report tab there, and let's call it all 4 years. And I'm going to do a little subset of an example I often do in training that's really cool. And again, it gives you a flavor for the power. All 4 years, okay, and hit the enter key. And now this report, it has all 4 years, 19, 18, 17, 16. By the way, notice how when I changed the tab name, the title changed? That was an enhancement a long time ago in Webi where it defaults to a new function called report name. So by me putting this in the title, it automatically picks up the tab name every time it might change. That's pretty cool. Let me do just one example here. Let's do a right click, delete, to get rid of that one. And then I'm going to take the all 4 years tab, and I'm going to duplicate it once. And we're going to take the duplicated tab, and I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to rename it 2019 at the end. So what I want to do is I want to create a second report tab that has just 1 year on it. And by doing it on this one, then I can even customize it. So the all 4 years is kind of a general report with a standard set of columns, but the 2019 can be that plus some additional columns, or I could remove them and so on. The problem is I'm seeing more than 1 year. Oh, that's easy enough. As I highlighted earlier today, if I highlight the year column, I select the filter button, and it comes back with the filters. I'm just going to pick number 19 for it. Do it, get that one in there. And it builds a basic query filter-like function, except it's a local filter for it. And now that 2019 tab only has that. Then what if I went in and I took the state column and I additionally did a sort on states to add a second one in? Okay? And we'll pick the biggies. California is one of them. And I'll do New York. And Texas for those. Get Texas in the mix. I'll do it with the arrow since it's a little funky on the double click there for that one. And now I've limited it down. Now, as you look at the report, what if something comes along, a question comes up and says, well, can you show me exactly what's being filtered? We don't know what the full set of data is by looking at this one. Yeah, we could go to the all 4 years, but I'm on this report tab. But there's a neat little function available to you. It's been around. You used to see it in earlier versions of Webi under a similar name. It's called Document Structure and Filter. And it's useful for, number one, local filters. Number two, if you hide a column. Let me show you. So if I go to the Document Structure and Filter button on the left side over here, and I select Filter, and I open up my blocks down the line, I got to make sure the filter button's highlighted because it sometimes will undo it, as you saw there. And look what it shows me. It tells you that on the vertical table, block 1, which is the 2019 tab, there's your standard components that make up your report block. It's showing you the two filters. What if I had gone over to the state column, and I did a right click, and I said, hide. Let's hide that column, okay? Now the column's hidden, but I don't know that by necessarily looking at it from there. So if you go back in and you take a look at the document structure and filter button that I'm at, not only did it show me all of my local filters for that block, and it'll show you all of your blocks and all of your report tabs, so you can work your way through the list. Notice the state object, the dimension, which is one of our objects, is showing up, but it's italicized, grayed out. It's telling you that it's hidden. So you know exactly, for this report block, you know there are 2 additional analysis features being utilized, local filtering and state, and there they are. Now I can go up to that filter window now and I can edit it. Okay, let's do this. Let me go back to available objects here so I'm on the right spot for this. If I go into my year column that's here, I can go in and I can edit the filters. Now that I've got more than one filter, many of you may not be aware of this, but I can make the and or, the or and I can layer these as well if you're doing the whole fiscal year. So even this and or functionality that you're used to doing with query filters carries into here as well. You won't see quite all of the same operators, but most of them, equal to, not equal, greater than, less than, and so on, so beware of that. Of course, I can get rid of the filters up here very quickly by doing it right inside the filter window, which will take all of the filters out. Now I'm back to looking at all of my data as we walk down through the process here as well. Notice the blue coloring, another thing people overlook. There's so many great features that Webi gives you. Self-help as I move around. Self-help as I move over my available objects, assuming my universe designer did their job and put the descriptions in. Blue coloring means I'm on the year column, those 2 features are turned on. Sales revenue doesn't have any. Okay? What about that hide functionality now it's missing? I can go to hide. I can say show hidden objects. We'll show all of them, not just the one, but all. And now I can see all my objects are here. And if there's something that's applied to any one of those, I will see it up here as well. Let me do one last thing on calculations, and I'm going to open it up for questions. When you create a report with breaks, not only do you get the automatic sums because of the break, but there's additional features you should look at putting in that report, namely percentage. I love percentage. Now notice it's not highlighted, so let me highlight sales revenue. And let me go up and do a percentage. And this is really cool. It's so overlooked by people. Percentage just doesn't give you a percentage of that year versus all 4, which is at the footer, but it also gives you the individual percentages that add up to 100 for all of the 8 states within that year, and it does it for every single one. If I had another break, you'd have another level of percentages created at an in-between level. That's done automatically, but that is cool, and it is so overlooked by users. They don't realize what it does. Here's what I always get questions on from people. They can't get rid of the percentage column. They try to do it directly. No. You go to sales revenue and you turn off the percentage feature by reselecting it. It unchecks it. That does all the house cleaning and removes all the corresponding objects for you as well. All right, so really, really cool feature to have. If you're not familiar with outlining, the outline feature, let's say for 2019, because it's the most current year, I don't need to see all this detailed information that's here. If I go to outlining, what it allows me to do is for the year at this level here, which if you go up here, it'll tell you break it on 2019. By selecting that, it collapsed the 2019 year down, and I don't see the 8 states, the 8 lines of detail. I only get the summary. Of course, I can open it back up again. So if you had 4 years, but maybe only the first and third years you wanted to see all of the detail, and the other 2 you only wanted the subtotals, there's your outlining. If you worked in Excel at all, you should know that one. It's called outlining over there. It works basically the same name. Which brings up another interesting little point. All of these features are great. When I apply them to a report, they're great. But if I port this over to Excel, they don't come along for the ride. So you have to redo these things in Excel. They're not carried over automatically. Things we didn't cover today, but could be separate ones, are the use of input controls is awesome. Conditional formatting with stoplights and thumbs up and down, and a lot of other things can be done with that feature as well. But the big 3 that you're going to use all the time and get comfortable are break, sort, and filter. The handout there's a limited handout I do. I'm going to give you the one that I built for breaks, specifically around breaks only. The detailed level content is in our chapter 4 of our course book, so I can't give a chapter away. But I'm going to pull a break example out for you to see. So you can see the couple different options I showed you for dealing with breaks to help you out. And I'll send you the summary of the new features by service pack level. So it'll be a master list starting with service pack 3 of what's new, 4, 5, 6, and 7 to help you as well. All right, let's stop for questions now. I'll leave this up. Sarah, do we have any questions out there?
We sure do, Michael. And actually, the first one, and I'm going in order that they came in, the first one is actually in reference to the percentages. It says, can you choose to show the top 3 and show what % of the total group those top 3 represent?
You'd have to do it through an arithmetic calculation. It would not be automatic through the button here, because when you do the percentage, it's going to do it based on for those 3, and you have to be done with a formula. There's a way you can do it. I just have to work through the calculation. But that's a good question. Send me an email on it later on. I can see if I can gen up an example for you. So, a good, very good question.
Great. The next question is, when would you use a section versus break?
Great question. And some of you have been through my famous advanced formatting presentation. We should do that one soon. It's been a long while, but we create a super duper master detail report. When would you do a break versus? If you have multiple breaks, you want to start thinking about maybe I should make the master cell, like in this case. If I put quarterback into the report, okay, so I said, let's put quarterback in. Since I have, and I did a break on it, okay, we'll put it back in here. And then I apply a break on that particular one. Since I've got, let's add it for just quarter. I was trying to do the other one, but that's okay. I don't really care about that. Put it in there. Okay on it. So in this case, because I have multiple breaks, year and quarter, then it might make sense to make those master cells so they stand above. I like the concept of a section or master detail report for most of my reporting, because you can remove the breaks and give them a little more information up here, and then the detail is just the detail section only, and you remove these 2 for readability to make it more readable. So that would, if you have more than one break, I would give strong consideration and try to strive for a master detail. Because if it is a master detail, if I did pull year up and stick it up here, let me get a hold of it. Oh, I haven't quite got it. It's got the extra footer in there it doesn't like. I'll get that one out of there real quick. I didn't turn off one of the features when I should have. So if I wanted to take the year and pull it out and then drop it up to here. So now I have the detail underneath for the master, makes it really nice. I can hide these blocks based on certain conditions for particular years. It's very easy to do in a master detail. It'd be a little bit harder to do that within the block itself. So just the master detail, I try to build as many master detail reports as I can. You'll also pick up the ability to use the map tab on the left side, and you can use that for navigation. There's another reason. So now I can go directly to 19 on my report or up to 16, because I know that when I create a master detail report, I get a map tab for navigation. So those are reasons why I try to build them in the master detail as much as I can, because it gives you more flexibility.
Great. I'll move on to the next question, Michael. When you have breaks applied, is there an option to repeat break labels so that you don't have to scroll up and down to see the high-level break label?
I'm not sure by the question what they want. We might have to do a follow-up on that so I get a better understanding. Yeah, well, I'll do a follow-up on that one. That's probably the best way. Make sure I'm clear on what they're doing.
We have another question. Is it possible to get a handout on the features of each release?
No, because it's built into my training. My Chapter 4 of my basic course is extremely big, and it's got all this detailed level content that comes with the training. What I do is I show you a lot of the features, and I pull just some of the selected subsets out, and that's all. Were you to take the training, you get all of the detail level. So I can't give away everything, unfortunately, but at least this way you had an opportunity to see it. And again, there'll be a couple handouts specifically to breaks and the general things that I'll pass out.
Great. Are we able to use group names in a function? For example, if West Coast, then,
yes.
And then ...
They're just another variable. Treat them as a normal variable. Whatever you can do with a variable, when you define a variable, then you use that variable inside of another calculation, inside of another one. Yes, you can do that. And that's what makes it so nice to create groups. Saves you so much time to group them together.
For sure. And the next one, I don't know if it's so much as a question or more of a comment, but it says outline would be a great use case.
Well, the best one I can think of is the one that I just had up where I had year, quarter, and state. What if I had 10 years worth of data and I had the most current year all the way down to the oldest data? You got all, let's say you got the same detail level, 8 states for each one of your years for 10 years. The bottom half of that report where you have, that make up the total of 10 years, but the bottom half of it, your oldest 5 years, you don't need to see the 8 states for each one of those. So I'd collapse each one of them down, one at a time, And when I get down beyond the first 5 years, all I'm looking at is the subtotal and not the detail. It makes it easier for me to scroll through. So it's going to be a function of, do you really need to see all the detail for every break level, or older data, can I hide it that way? And it works both down and across. If you're doing a cross table, you can use outlining on the across as well as going down.
Or what do you do to group a value that may not appear in the report? Example, a new class code is added and you wish to group with another class code, but it's a new enough code that you currently do not have any. It does not show up in the group through the table. How can you group the class code before it first appears in the report?
Could not group it specifically. You'd have to throw that into what's called the ungrouped values category and then automatically group it with a name, but you can only have one. That's the problem. So if you have another one that comes in later, what's going to do is anything that comes in new that doesn't fall into one of the existing groups already will go into the automatic group button here in there, but it will put them together. You can't split those out. I get asked this question, well, what if I wanted to group it to 2 or 3 different names for 2 or 3 different values? You can't. It's only this, whatever you call that, one single. It's a catch-all. It catches any that don't already have a group that they belong to. It would be nice to be able to do it in multiples, but it doesn't support it that way.
The next question is, what is the data tracking and interact tab used for?
Data tracking is a feature that allows you to look at your data. What it does is it allows you to highlight data based on the difference between one period to the next. So if you're running a report weekly, you get a new report each week. You schedule it, you get a new one that comes out each week. You can define as part of data tracking, it's like conditional formatting, and say for this entire report, if the total sales revenue for the report for a period exceeds 5%, then I want you to highlight all the following columns. So when it goes from the first period to the next, it looks at it in the new one, it says, did it change by 5% from the previous week? It will automatically apply the coloring and so on. You have to turn it on and let it run for a while. So it's conditional formatting, but done at the report level. So you're telling it how to format the block based on the change from one period to the next. So it has to be the type of report where you're doing history. And scheduling is the best example because it creates instances when you schedule reports, and you can then look at history, one week to the next, or 1 month to the next, or 1 year to the next.
Next question, if you have multiple columns hidden, is there a way to only unhide certain columns?
I love that question. The answer is no. You go in and you hide something, it hides it. So what if you hid 2 or 3 columns, all right? So if you go in here later on to show it, let me just show you this real quick. This is really cool. So I go in and hide it, okay? And maybe I go hide a couple others. And then I come back in later and say, well, what's hidden? So I go back, right-click, hide, and it says hide column or show hidden objects. It will show all of them, whether you like it or not. So you have no way to do it. But I just gave you a really cool feature. It's actually outlined in our advanced reporting, in our advanced course, day 3, where I show you the document structure button that you saw, and I find them in there, and then I can come back. Unfortunately, however, the show is going to show all of them. Then you have to go back and selectively re-hide 1 or 2 that you didn't want. That's one of the little quirky things about it. One of the requests we've made of the Paris developers, but I don't know if we'll ever see it or not. It would be nice. That's a good one, though.
Next question, can we do inner and outer joints in this analysis tab?
It's not done on this tab. Inner and outer joins are the equivalent. Is done in the, you would do your merging. You'd bring in your multiple queries via data access using edit queries and bring in multiple queries. Then you would use the merge function to merge together the common dimensions, and you would pull them together that way. Whether it's an inner join or outer join between the queries is part of what makes up multiple data providers. And you have the control over that, how you want to do it. Yeah. But that's not on the analysis toolbar. It's on the data access tab under merge, and that's one of several ways of joining together multiple queries. I only have 1 query, so it wouldn't make sense. If I had a second query against another universe or the same universe, then the merging would make sense, and then the inner-outer join conversation would make sense.
And we have somebody asking, could you please show break totals within sections and sorting on the master detail? I don't know if that's something that we would have time for now, or if that would be something.
That one up later on. I know what they're trying to do. Yeah. I have my one example, advanced formatting, that I do incorporates that in. Yeah, it would be, you get section totals on top and the subtotals within, like, Well, here we have it inside the detail level right there. Now, for the totals up here, all I'd have to do is drag sales revenue across to the right, get a section total for that, and quantity sold to the right of that. Okay. And now what I've done is I've basically, here's my totals at the master level. If there was a quarter, I could have done it there. And then here's my break, and the breaks within my report block itself with the 4 quarters that make up their year there. And I think that's kind of what they're asking for right there. Automatic subtotals on the detail level. The detailed section in the master section, we do it by dragging them to the right. You don't want to pull them from down here up there, although you could because it'll remove the columns. I pulled them from the available objects on the left. And again, if I had had quarter as the second master cell underneath here, I could have dragged sales revenue and quantity sold again and gotten the quarterly totals at that level. But this is exactly, here it is. There's your section totals on top, and here's your break level subtotals that are done automatically on the detail block, which is a vertical table.
Okay, I'm going to keep going if that's okay with you still, Michael, because we've still got some questions. And the next one I think is more of a interest in perhaps a future webinar, which is this person is wanting to learn more about merging queries or reports. So perhaps that's something we could table for the next webinar.
What we could do for the next webinar, which we could make it 2-in-1, I call it managing your merging. We could do a combination of merging queries in Excel files and doing a whole presentation on that. I've done one like that before. It's a high interest for a lot of you. It's important. Just to give you an idea how powerful this tool is, I have a customer that's out there, and some of you are on the webinar today, I'm sure. I got to look through the list, double check. But it's got approximately 70 queries in one document. So when I look over here and I see one query, there's 69 more for around 70-ish, okay? I can merge them all together different ways and combine it all together and get all of my different reports, pulling in all of my measures across all my different queries or data providers. And all the numbers all line up automatically, assuming I merge those together properly. And it can be Excel files as well.
Our next question is, does sorting from measures work for variables created at the report level? For example, price and quantity.
Yep, you can sort on anything. If it's a local variable, you can sort on it. If by default, if it's a variable, it's an extension of your universe. So no matter what it is, dimension, detail, or measure, it's sortable. It can be sorted.
We have another question. Do you have training on subqueries or combined queries?
Yes, we do. It's part of advanced reporting. Our advanced reporting class has a first chapter on advanced calculations, variables, formulas, and functions. Chapter 2 on multiple data providers is a 2.5-hour module. Subquery any, subquery all is covered. We have a chapter on combination queries, which is basically union, intersect, and type concepts, all part of advanced. Those are all advanced topics, and they're really great advanced level features of the product.
And you may have already answered this next question, Michael, but it says, can we sort sections based on subtotals?
I get that. Yeah, that question I get asked. There's a way to do it. If it's in the master section, that's what I've done. In my example that's up, I can sort based on this cell right here in descending order. So it's the section total, but I want to do it in descending order. I can do it right here on that one if I wanted to, from highest to lowest, or we could do lowest to highest. We'll do us descending. You'll see Texas show up first. Oh, it's by year, so it's going to do the year, whatever the highest year is, by the next lowest year, and so on down the line. Yes, you can. As long as you got you've got to have the subtotal in there, so it's going to have to be in the master section for you to be able to do that. You can sort it.
Okay. There's a comment here that someone would like to learn how to filter the duplicate values.
Well, there's a setting at the query panel level that allows you to do that. In terms of handling duplicates, there are different ways. So if I go back to the query panel, that's a query panel function because you're bringing in data providers. You're bringing in rows of data. So that's managed up here. And up on top, you have what's called query properties. And the query properties window here. And we covered this in our intermediate course. We have a whole section on putting in prompts, putting them in the right order. Refreshable, retrieve duplicate rows, delete trailing blanks, remove empty rows. Those are all your various settings that you have available. Let me show you again. You've got to go back to the query panel. Remember, in Webi, you're in two places, query panel, report viewer. We just spent the whole session in the report viewer. We're back at the query panel, and we click the little finger button up here for query properties. Look at the self-help message. If you want to know what the SQL is going to look like that gets generated for that statement, The first button gives you View SQL. And you can actually customize the SQL, but because we're using Microsoft Access, Microsoft version of the SQL, and sometimes you can look at that SQL and figure out where things are coming from. Maybe you're trying to find a specific table. But the second button, here's your query properties. It's available, and it gives you a lot of what you're looking to do right there.
The next question was, do you have a handout for data tracking? Sounds like that might be a future webinar subject.
Not really, because it's not widely used, and it wouldn't fill up 45 minutes for it. What I could do is I could pull the little data tracking section out of our book. For those that are interested, they'd have to let me know. And I say it that way because most people don't use data tracking because your data it's not scheduled where you have periodic periods. You have to have weekly report or monthly report or quarterly because it has to be able to track changes from one period to the next. If you fall into that category, I'd be happy to take that one little piece of the chapter, chapter 5 of our basic. I'll pull that one little section out in PDF, and I'll be happy to share it with you as well.
Great. Just a couple more.
Okay, go ahead.
How to add header for the section total on the top. How do you do that?
You'd have to put a blank cell above the master cell where that measure was dragged, maybe at the top of the report, but not inside the section, but just above it. You just put 2 blank cells. In one of the cells, I put sales revenue as text over the top of that column. And I put a second one to the right of it for quantity sold. Very easy. You just drop in freestanding cells wherever you want them to go, and it takes care of it.
We have someone asking to unhide a hidden column at a time. Would you assign data? Would the assign data option work?
I don't know that would work in there. I'd have to try that, but I don't think so. I don't think it would work in there. It's really a different feature, hiding something. All the assigned data is designed to do is to remap what's already there. So, I'll have to do some experimenting, but it doesn't make sense to me that would work, just because of how the hide functionality is built.
Got a couple more. Is there a function to show a constant instead of values for particular columns? For example, for GDPR fields that don't display certain values.
Oh, I'd need a little more information on what they're trying to do. I think I know what they want, but I'm not sure. You could create a local variable calculation with an if then else, so it only loads in something into that new variable that's specific. You can then filter on that, or you could do an input control like a radial button or a checkbox or something like that. Then you could pick which ones you wanted based on that, but I'm not sure exactly. A few of them, those that come up like that, if you could just get me an email later on, that would take care of it. I'll do a follow-up for you. I always like to play around with questions that you have to see what else we can get the product to do.
Absolutely. Can you do a ranking off a subtotal?
Oh, the only way you'd have to off the subtotal itself. You'd have to create a variable out. You create a reference cell out of it, but could you rank on that? That one I don't see that working. But that one, send me a note on that one. I have a couple ideas on how you might be able to do that.
What version and SP was this class presented in?
I'm running at 4.2 Service Pack 7. There was no questions on it, but if you notice my default report format that came up, the report when I ran it, what are we all used to seeing? The blue title with white numbers, white values for the name of the variable. You notice it wasn't blue background with white for each of these names and so on. That was an SP6 and 7 change in terms of format. But I'm running SP7. SP8, it doesn't matter if you go to 8 or not because it's strictly bug fixes. There are no product enhancers at all in SP8. We've already taken a look at it. We're downloading and upgrading it, but it's strictly for some bug fixes, and I don't know specifically which. The other handout I give you will summarize all the new features by Service Pack level. So it'll be 4.2 Service Pack 3. You'll see all the values, all the things that are up. 4, what's up, 5, 6, and 7. It'll help guide you through. For ProTech training, so if you take a look while we're answering questions, it does show you what we've got scheduled coming up for their general public virtual classes. I do a lot of virtual training, and I have all along, even in spite of what's going on in the world right now. So pretty good at delivering it training that way. So go ahead. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's one comment and then one final question. The comment was, would like to do a webinar on subqueries and combined queries. And,
that's a good one.
How do How do you add a blank cell?
How do you add a blank cell?
Yeah.
All right. Look at the report I've got up. It's a master detail here. Let me go back to first report because it's not master detail format. If you go up to report elements is the tab you have to be very careful with. When I teach this in training class in an intermediate course, I tell you to make sure the little caution lights go on, little light bulbs in your brain tune in because you're using it to add new stuff only, whether you're adding a speedometer or a pie chart or whatever, or adding a report. There's a cell feature. You click on cell, then you click on blank. This becomes a floating template. I call it the piece of gum stuck to your shoe syndrome. I click on blank. I bring the blank over wherever I want. It's waiting for me to drop that blank cell somewhere, and I'll stick it right there, and now I have a blank cell. And just like always, I can stretch it either way. I can auto-fit it whatever I want. Then I can go back to add another blank cell. Maybe I want to stick that one right over here. You can stick blank cells anywhere and everywhere. It's part of our intermediate course when we introduce different types of report blocks, things like horizontal, vertical table, cross table, section reports, form documents, and then all the different types of charts we cover as well, including some of the geo maps that are available, speedometers, funnels, all that stuff as well. But there's your blank cell right there. So the listing that I popped up is the ProTech general public. I do a lot of training with ProTech. We have together for a long time. They would be virtual. You wouldn't have to physically go. You get your books and content. Any training class that I do, you get about 25 to 30 best practice guides. They're all little mini guides that we put together to highlight more in-depth look at features like one on managing your merging, one on Excel files, advanced calculations, all kinds of handouts, building visualizations. There's one dashboarding, things like that. So those all come with all of the training. The basic intermediate you'll see is offered as a bundle, and then the advanced separate one from that. The advanced would include your combination queries and subqueries. We've got some really good examples of both that we do in the advanced training class. It's coming up in early June. If you're interested in universe design or information design, those could be presentations also, by the way, but you'd have to let us know. It's just a smaller pool of users. We usually do those based on demand. So if a lot of you expressed an interest, I can show you the information design tool. It's pretty cool. I can show you the old universe design tool. So, Sarah, you want to talk on the training? I guess you have some information to share?
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Michael. So just further to Michael, it's actually a great time right now because we are starting a special promotion, starts today, and it runs until the end of this month, the end of May. And the promotion is if you purchase 2 seats in a class, you get the second seat at 50% off. Or if you purchase 3 seats in a class, you get the third seat for free. So by all means, reach out to us at info@protectraining.com, or you can go on to our website to do the registration. And you'll notice there's a marketing code on the registration page. In order to get that promotion, you just need to enter in spring 2020. So, and as Michael mentioned, 99% of all of our training right now is being done virtually. And so we've got upcoming webinars in the coming months that will be highlighted on our website on the resource section, along with our past webinar recordings. And Michael and one of his colleagues were with us last year doing a couple of webinars that the recordings may be of interest to this audience. One of which was on Tableau, looking at transforming the way data can be used to solve problems. And Michael also did one on building visualizations in web intelligence. So both of those past webinar recordings can be found on our list of past webinars under the resource tab of our website. And unless you have anything else to add, Michael, I was going to thank everybody and close the session.
Webi is a great, great tool. It's the #1 reporting tool in the world. It can do a lot. It complements your Tableau or Power BI. It doesn't compete with it. So, and I teach Tableau and I work with Tableau. So if you were doing a training class and some of you said, well, what is the difference? Sometimes I'll pop up a quick Tableau, open up a workbook, bring in a spreadsheet, and I'll show you the difference. You know, they're both awesome products. Both awesome products. Well, good.
Wonderful. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time and your expertise today. And thank you to everybody else for joining us. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all very much.